Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. Welcome. So I've had a day to experience the PTR, and I got myself an app, and really kind of had to absorb this patch. It's weird. It's really weird. I don't know whether I like it or whether I hate it.
Afternoon.
Like it's almost like that freaking Star Trek episode where like Data Fire, that was the movie, it was Generations, the movie where he gets his emotion chip and he goes down to 10 forward, he gets a drink, and Guinan gives him like the most disgusting drink that ever existed, and he drinks it, and then he's like oh, 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 and she's like, what? It's disgusting? Yes, that. Would you like another? Yes. Like, this update is disgusting. Like, there's some good things about it, and I do kind of like some of the things about it, but the update's disgusting. We're going to talk about the update line by line, because it's the only way I know to go over it, so we're just going to pull up the patch notes, and we're going to talk about some of the update stuff, and, like, what's good and what's bad, and, like, what's weird. Just really weird. First off, the update to the Warlock health potion effectiveness. So this was a thing that I actually tested in D2. So for some reason or another, the potion for the Warlock did like nothing. I actually tested this across all the characters, and like if you had basically no HP and you drank a whole bunch of health potions, it would take roughly around like 15 to 20 seconds to refill your HP to full. That's the rate of recovery, not the amount of recovery, but the rate of recovery. And when I tested it on the Warlock was like 38 to 42 seconds to recover the same amount of hit points. And the recovery rate on the Warlock was really, really slow. So right off the bat, we have one really good change, which is the Warlock HP potions actually work now. If you have noticed at some point or another that the Warlock just seems to regenerate potion like really, really slow, and you kind of have to use rejuvenation potions on the Warlock, well, yeah, this was it. And I did test it on the public test realm, and it works. Like it is fixed, so that's really good. Warlocks can now only equip two-handed weapons in one hand, and the other hand using Grimoire class items, not a shield. It's such a non-like change. A lot of people are upset about it because they can't use their Phoenix or their Spirit Shields, and it's stupid because they were never the best in slot anyway. Like the Mephistoles, the Diabolos, the freaking Balos, the Measured Wrath, like the rare books, the blue books, the freaking like Rhyme and Splendor books. They were always better anyway. Like, I even specifically tested a lot of these options against each other, and the shields just never won in any scenario. I don't even know why they did this change. But there are people out there that are super upset about it, and it's stupid. Demonic Mastery, the max demon count now requires base skill point investment. This is kind of a lie. It's not really the truth. They actually, like, explicitly changed the way that Demon Mastery works almost entirely. Like, it doesn't require the same number of point investments that it required before. So, like, before you needed a lot more points, even though they were soft points, you needed a lot more points to reach, like, 2 and 3 demons. Now you can reach 2 demons at 5 hard points, which is way lower than the previous soft point number. And you can reach 3 demons at 10 hard points, which is way lower than the previous soft point number. It's actually honestly kind of better in a way because it requires less skill point investment to reach that point, and then your soft points even still give you more bonus over it. It was 10 points per level before, now it's only 5 points per extra demon, which is like way better. So yes, you require base points to get the extra demons, but they halved the points, which is something that they didn't really mention here, and it's actually better. I like it. I think it's a good change. Summon Goatmen don't seem even remotely affected by this change whatsoever. Moving on. Blood Oath, damage transfer cap doesn't seem to even remotely change anything. Like, whatever, moving on. Blood Boil, as far as I was aware, it was always hard capped in radius. When I tested it before, like, it always kind of had a hard cap radius. I don't really know why they did this whole 2-yard, 3-yard crap. They should just make it 4 yards. Like, why even bother with this? Just make it 4 yards and just move on. Like, if 4 yards is going to be the cap, just make it 4 yards away across. Like, there's no reason to even have it scaled. 4 yards is rather restrictive, don't get me wrong, but as far as I'm aware, it was never going much further than 4 yards anyway. because it was bugged. It was part of the whole like blood boil bug thing, and it wasn't really even working properly. I don't know. It's still pretty powerful at 4 yards for what it is. Like you teleport the minion onto the monster. It doesn't really even matter that it has a radius because you basically deathmark your minion on the monster and then you start blood boiling. So like you basically get the free blood boil anyway just by stomping your monsters on everything. It's kind of a non-issue. I just don't really understand why they scaled from 2 yards to 3 yards to 4 yards. It seems rather obsessive. The consume change, I didn't really even notice it at all, to be perfectly honest. I think I played around with some low-level characters and some high-level characters, and I didn't really notice. I think it's going to be fine. Well, honestly, all it does is it just lowers the amount that you get from lower demons, which is fine. Consume is still really powerful. You still get good bonuses from it. You just don't get as high of a bonus early on. There's nothing really too wrong with it. Bind Demon. There's a lot to talk about with Bind Demon. So across the board, Bind Demon has changed rather dramatically. You can still sort of 1-point wonder it. Sort of. Ish. Kinda. It doesn't really work very well. The demons die pretty often. This line right here introduced max health cap, which varies by each demon. That one right there has completely neutered the demons. Unless you're willing to fully invest into the Bind Demon, they're going to end up dying. They're nowhere near as tanky as they were before. To put it into perspective, I had a character, solo self-found character, that had a Lister the Tormentor, and in that solo self-found run, I did P1 Ubers, and I basically just let my Lister the Tormentor sit there in P1 Ubers, and he would never die. I brought that same Lister, same character, same everything, same seed code, same map, same everything. Brought him into the game, put Lister in the same exact situation, and he died instantaneously. So, if you invest into these guys, it seems like they can still be moderately tanky, but overall, as it is right now, the demons are nowhere near as tanky as they were before. I don't know if they're going to bring this up a little bit. I feel like they're a little bit too weak in my opinion, but I haven't really 20-pointed Oath and massive number of plus to skills with Blood Oath. I feel like if you have maxed Blood Oath and you're running Demon Skillers and whatnot, and you have your full setup, I feel like it's probably going to be fine. In fact, some people said that they didn't have any trouble if they were fully set up, which is probably how it should have always been. And it seems like a lot of these changes are designed around that idea, which is they don't want you to have a 1-point wonder of a demon. They changed the auras. They did take away Conviction, Holy Fire, Holy Light, Holy Shock, Blessed Aim, and Might. The only one that a lot of people are really upset about is Conviction. They replaced, however, a lot of the auras that they took away with Vigor, which is really cool, Thorns, which is amazing, and Concentration, which is also really neat and actually kind of feeds into some builds. If you were a Faith Boson, you could have the Concentration, or like a Faith Fizz Warlock, basically Bowlock. You could have the Concentration in combination with your Fanaticism, which is actually kind of cool. Then you could have a Might Merc, and then you could have I don't know, an Infinity on him or something for negative defense. You could basically have all your auras and eat it too. Vigor is actually a really fun combination with Consume because you can run really fast. Really, really fast. Like Sanic to Hoojheg fast, if you guys know my Sanic to Hoojheg character. It's nutty because you get the bonus from Vigor, you get the bonus from the Consume, and then you also get your Run Walk boots and all the other crap. And so you get, it's cool. It's a good change, and the Thorns is going to be really fun with Rancor. I like it all across the board. They didn't take away Holy Freeze, which is fine. They did do a nerf to Cursed. I'm not sure it really matters though because unless you're building into the demon, you're not going to be able to actually get a Cursed demon and keep it for a prolonged period of time. It's just going to die. It's kind of difficult to actually grab a specific demon and keep a specific demon now because it's more or less just whatever you get at that moment. And even then, it's much harder to actually bind a demon at this point. Extremely more difficult to bind a demon. It's ridiculous. They did a lot of nerfing to the bind percentage and also the number of attempts and a bunch of other things. One of the things that they did that really brought down the total ability to bind demons is actually at the bottom here. I think it was at the bottom here. Yeah, right here. So fix blind demon not to roll a blind every 2 frames, and it now checks on a bind on every 24th frame instead. So to put this into perspective, it was trying to bind the demon 12.5 times per second before, and now it is only binding once per second. So far less actual checks to bind the demon per second than before, right? Now, if that wasn't enough, they also made it much more difficult to actually bind the demon in 2 ways. The first one is they reduced the health bonus. So they reduced the benefit that the missing health bonus, which actually makes it so that you can bind the demon. So if you've never bound a demon before, I'll explain. When you go to bind a demon, you have to damage the demon first and remove health from the demon to make it easier to bind the demon. You could almost never bind a demon unless you had essentially that setup, right? But the thing is that now the benefit from missing health is far less advantageous. It still works, but it doesn't really help that much. And then they also reduced the synergy to increase the bind chance. And overall, the entire process has gotten very difficult. To put it into perspective, before it might take you 1 to 3 seconds to bind a demon. Now it might take you between 10 seconds to a minute, depending on how lucky you are. I've had it happen in about 10 seconds before. I was super lucky. And sometimes I'll sit there for an entire minute and I can't get what I'm looking for. Now, for this particular curse, the amplified damage thing, I didn't really think it was going to be that much of an issue because you can just grab a Holy Freeze Demon and you can get a Cursed Holy Freeze Demon and you can have the Cursed Holy Freeze Demon still apply Curse to the entire screen. Problem is, the demon dies all the time. So even if you go get a Holy Freeze Demon, and even if that Holy Freeze Demon has Cursed, he's still going to die all the damn time. Unless you're going to invest into the demon, having a specific combination is not going to be very viable anymore. In fact, if you can only invest 1 point into the Bind Demon skill, you're not even going to get an aura. Unless you can get 20 soft points. So it's kind of interesting in the way that this works, and I'm going to see if I can break this down as much as I can because it's complicated. So they've made it so that you have to put base points into the ability to be able to bind specific demons. Okay? You have to be able to put 10 points in to bind a champion. You have to put 15 points in to bind a unique monster and 20 points to bind a super unique. Now, the base points only affect what demons you can bind, not the soft point bonuses for the demons. It's confusing. I know. It's a little confusing, and I'm going to try and break this down even more. All right? So when you bind a demon can get bonuses. They have specific bonuses that they can get, like extra strong, extra fast, spectral hit, aura enchanted, and so forth and so on. So these are still working off of soft points, if this makes sense. All right. So the aura enchanted is still working off of soft points and still requires 20 soft points to activate. And the same goes for every single one of these, is they require their equivalent in soft points to actually work. However, you cannot actually bind a demon that is above your base points. So even though this one would allow you to get an aura enchanted monster, you can't summon or bind rather a unique demon because the unique demon requires 15 hard points, which is weird. It gets even more complicated when you look at it from different perspectives, right? So a level 15 or a 15 base point person can go and grab a unique rare monster, and that unique rare monster will have an aura, and so you can basically get an aura for free from that rare monster. It's actually been reported that you can get conviction from that combination, which is a bug at the moment, and it has to do with the fact that the aura doesn't re-roll unless the demon is higher than level 19. And this has to do with the soft points. So Aura Enchanted is a soft point 20 ability. The demon, the unique demon, is not a soft point 20 ability. It is a 15 point ability. So if you have between 15 and 19 points and not 20, for some reason or another, it keeps the aura that's on the unique monster because it doesn't actually apply your own aura to the demon at level 20, which makes this an exploit to be able to keep Conviction aura. It actually works. Probably something that they're going to patch out, but we'll find out. So basically, how this is currently working is there is a soft point bonus and there is a hard point bonus, and depending on which one you want, you have to be able to utilize that specific type. So the 4 soft point bonuses are Extra Strong, Extra Fast, Spectral Hit, and Aura Enchanted. The 4 hard point bonuses are 1 hard point for white mobs, 10 hard points for any champion, 15 hard points for a unique monster, and you need 20 hard points for a super unique, which makes it actually kind of confusing. So if you want Hephaestus as an example, like Hephaestus is a really easy aura enchanted monster that you can get access to, became very popular this season because, well, I mean, if you need an aura, you go straight to Hephaestus. Hephaestus always has an aura, you just let him cycle through his auras. Well, if you go and you want to grab Hephaestus, you need 20 hard points. And this is where things just kind of like are all over the place. The 15 unique monster, you need 15 hard points. The champion, you need 10 hard points. And the white mob, you only need 1. However, if you have 10 hard points and you get a champion and you have 20 soft points, then you're going to get an aura applied to the champion. Am I making myself clear? And if you have a 20 soft point bonus and you bind a demon that has an aura, like Conviction aura, it will overwrite the Conviction aura with one of the new auras. If you have 20 soft points at all, and you make any monster, it will always roll through Fanaticism, Vigor, Thorns, Concentration, and Holy Freeze. If you don't have 20 points, and you bind a demon who has an aura, it will not roll through the Fanaticism, Vigor, Thorns, Concentration, and Holy Freeze, and instead it will just keep the aura that's on the monster. Like I said, it's complicated. All of this is even further complicated by the fact that like none of it really even matters anymore because the demons are super weak. They just don't survive. So despite the fact that you can do interesting things like grab a unique monster with Conviction aura, if you're lucky enough to find a unique monster with Conviction aura, and then if you can keep your bonus points at the right level when you summon him, yeah, like you can grab one. But like then he dies and he's dead. And they die all the time, like every single like freaking 5 seconds. I can barely even keep mine alive. Mana cost reduced when you're binding them. So like before, I don't know if you guys remember, but like you would hold down the button and your mana would just disappear, like entirely. So it would just go away. You're just like, you would right click and it's like, oh, where'd my like 1,000 point mana pool go? Well, that had to do with the fact that it was freaking trying to bind the demon multiple times. We talked about this earlier. It was trying to bind the demon 12.5 times per second, and the cost of binding the demon was actually pretty damn expensive. So like when you multiply that across like 20 mana, it was burning like 250 mana per second, and like within like 10 seconds it was burning like 2,500 mana. Well, they reduced the cost, and they also reduced the frequency at which it binds the target, which basically means the Bind Demon doesn't cost anything anymore. Like, it doesn't actually cost any mana. It's actually relatively cheap. So when you're sitting there for a minute trying to bind a demon, it won't burn up all your mana while you're doing it. It is exceedingly difficult to bind demons now, though. I definitely have to stress that. Like, you go out and you try and bind a demon, and it's going to take you forever. Overall, I understand what they're trying to do with Divine Demons, but it's just really weird. I like the auras that they added. I don't really care about most of the auras that they removed. I know some people are upset about Conviction, but I don't really care. I understand what they're doing with the point, like, expenditure. But the problem is they left the soft point bonus in for Aura Enchanted. And because they left the soft point bonus in for Aura Enchanted, you could just 1 point. You can still 1 point wonder it. So let me make that absolutely clear. You can still 1 point wonder Bind Demon if you have 19 plus the skills. Because then you still get the soft point bonus, and every time you bind a demon, you will still get the aura. So if you're capable of getting 20 soft or 19 soft points in Bind Demon, you can still 1.1 wonder it, despite the fact that it's very obvious that the entire purpose of the changes that they made was to prevent you from 1.1 wondering the demons. Moving on. Chaos. So the whole Chaos tree got like absolutely nerfed and smacked in the dong. I don't even know how to explain it. I actually wrote up like a thing on it. The Myasma Bolt ability, like the Myasma Chain ability, they just I don't know what's going on with any of it, to be perfectly honest. It's clunky and it doesn't work right. They made these changes where they basically took Miasma Bolts and they reduced the delay. They added a delay before the Cloud Missile spawns, which is horrible. The monster almost always moves out of the cloud before it actually damages them now. So unless you find a way to stop their movement entirely, they almost never even get hit by the Miasma Bolt anymore. Like, they have to be standing completely still, and you have to fire multiple Miasma Bolts at them while they're standing completely still, or they take no damage. Because even if you fire one at them and the cloud spawns and they move out of the cloud, they still take no damage because there's like a tick delay problem. And my experience with the Miasma Bolt was it was actually so terrible that unless the monster was deliberately standing still for you and did not move, you basically did like 0 damage with Miasma Bolt. But if you could get the monster to stand still, like, it felt okay. It went from the best like single target ability like to it feels way worse now. Like, I don't know what they did to it, but they ruined it. Like, it's garbage now. I don't even think if I built an Abyss character, I don't even think I would use Miasma Bolt anymore because it's not superior to other options. Miasma Chain. They did a bunch of changes to Miasma Chain. They removed the casting delay, which seems like a good idea, but then they put a limit on the number of active chains to 5. And then they reduced the damage of the ability as well. The clouds have a reduction of 50% of damage, which is awful. They also changed a bunch of stuff in the bug notes down here. It says fixed Miasma Bolt no longer double ticks. So the Miasma Bolt got lowered tremendously. Fixed the chain clouds not to exponentially tick. And then fixed the chain clouds to respect next hit delay if they were generated in the same chain. There's no way I can explain this to you without bringing up legendary paint, okay? We're going to bring up paint, and I'm going to explain this to you. So first off, let's draw a chain. So we're going to make the chain black, just so that it's really obvious. All right, so here's our chain. And then let's put our player down. Our player is going to be red, so here's our player. And here is the monster. So we got the monster over here. And then we're going to make the clouds. Okay, so here's the clouds. So when you cast a Miasma Chain, it makes clouds. And each one of these clouds runs along the chain toward the user. All right? So what they did in a nutshell was they made it so that every single one of these Miasma clouds is on the same next hit delay. And this is important because when you do this, when you take all of these and you put them on the same next hit delay, oh, you dirty hillbilly. What you're doing is you're making it so that the monster can run from point A to point B with relative ease. So how does this work? If the monster is running in this direction, and every single one of these clouds is on the same next hit delay, the monster runs through the clouds and gets hit by like maybe 2 of the clouds. Because the monster is running so fast that as they run towards you, they get hit by the first one. So they always take the first tick of damage. So if we want to at least point out, they take this tick of damage right here, which is the first Miasma cloud. However, that initiates the next hit delay process, which then causes the next cloud to do 0 damage. The next cloud after that does 0 damage. And depending on how fast the monster is moving, the next cloud after that does 0 damage. And then they finally hit the next cloud in the chain, which does which is after the next hit delay problem, and they might get hit by a second cloud in the chain, at which point they generally reach you entirely before they end up getting hit more than like 2 times, because the monster is moving in the direction of you and then triggering the next hit delay of the chain, which causes each individual cloud in the chain to do nothing, essentially, which makes the chain really, really bad. Another big problem with the chain is that you can't cast the chain to any monster beyond the monster that's directly in front of you. So if I were to cast the chain and there was another monster, for instance, like right here, then the chain would always stop dead right there and would never proceed past that monster. You cannot cast the chain over here. It can only be cast at the closest monster in line of sight of you, which also further complicates matters, because then instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 miasma puddles, you have like 2 or 3 miasma puddles, and then the next hit delay basically makes it so they only get hit 1 time by 1 puddle. Now, the only saving grace to this is that if you have multiple chains, each chain has its own next hit delay. Every miasma puddle in the chain is now linked together, so the monsters are only getting hit like, for instance, if you had 5 chains before and a monster ran at you, they would probably get hit 5 times the number of puddles between you and them, which was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 5. So you're looking at something like, 35, 40 hits, depending on whether they dodged out of them or not, right? Now you're looking at like 5 times 2, which is like, maybe if you're lucky, you might get like 10 hits on the monster before they reach you. And most of the time, it does like no damage to them whatsoever. The way that they've currently changed miasma chains is not only atrocious and feels clunky and awful, but on top of that, I don't know what's going on with the range of it either, because if you run around to do exactly what they want you to do, because you can't cast on the other side of the monster, right? But if you run around to actually do what they want you to do, the line snaps. Because if you run too far away from the location where you cast the chain, it just cancels the whole spell. And so you can't even run around and actually clothesline anything, because the range of the chain is terrible. You can't cast it on the other side of the monsters to get the chain in the right position. You can't run around to get the chain in the right position. You can't blade warp to get the chain in the right position, because blade warp for some reason breaks the chain immediately. The only thing that apparently works is teleport. Teleport works, but blade warp doesn't. I don't even know why. The cap to the chains. So they basically wanted to make it so that you could very quickly cast the chains instead of having to have the delay, which is similar to Hydra. And it kinda is okay-ish in the most basic way that it allows you to drop down your chains quickly, but it also costs like 180 some odd mana to drop down 5 chains in an abyss. Like, you literally just burn through every bit of your mana casting the chains, and the chains only last for like 6 seconds. Overall, it seems like they absolutely gutted the miasma tree. Like, does it still work? Sure, I guess, kinda. Like, if you have top-end gear and top-end equipment, negative resistances, like a huge mana pool and faster cast, you're now a mediocre character at best. Congratulations, you've now spent like way too much currency to make your character mediocre. And then the 5 chains cap thing. So the 5 chains cap thing, I can understand why they did it, but it also completely and utterly neuters the proc version, which was actually really good, by the way, and the use of basically any chains on any character other than Warlock. So if you're like a Procazon, for instance, which it actually worked really cool on Procazon, you can't use it on Procazon either, because what happens is it does no damage. So there's 2 things that are causing it to do no damage, and I'll explain myself. The first one is the delay that they added. So they added a delay before the ability actually spawns. So before the cloud spawns, they added this delay. The other thing is that when you cast a chain, it takes that delay to make the clouds. But if you cast a 6th chain, it automatically deletes the first chain because that's how caps work. Well, because of the delay, you can't get any miasma to actually spawn anymore, and it's even worse than I thought. I thought it was just going to be bad from the perspective of I won't get as many chains, I'll only have 5 chains. But it's even worse from the perspective of you don't even get any actual damage because the 6th chain immediately deletes the first before the first even spawns a cloud. So you get no clouds. So you can't even do the proc version at all. It's not just neutered, it's dead. The proc version is literally just dead. And then they also changed the... Where is it? It's in here right here. Enhanced Entropy. Enhanced Entropy is fixed so that the Abyss Radius, Myasma Radius, and Myasma Duration increases with bonus skill levels, soft points, instead of base skill points. I tested it. It doesn't work. I tested Abyss with it, and I tested Abyss without it. I tested with hard points, and I tested it with soft points, and it doesn't work. Like, the Abyss range is definitely larger with hard points than it is with soft points. It is very extremely obvious if you go test it. If you just go out in the wild and you just use an Abyss next to a monster with hard points versus using an Abyss next to the monster with soft points, it doesn't work. So I was kind of excited for this one because it made it a little bit easier to actually build the Myasma character without having to invest 80 points. But it looks like it doesn't work at the moment, so hopefully they fix it. Overall, I would not recommend playing a Myasma character, like, if they put these patches through. I don't think it's going to be enjoyable. Will it work? Yes, it'll work. It'll be the most mediocre experience of your life. That's what my girlfriend said. Just not fun. And it's not even just that it's not fun, it's awkward. It's like it literally feels like you're just doing this weird dance for no reason that just doesn't really give you much benefit. Like, you can see what they're trying to get you to do, but you can't do it. Like, you can't reliably do it without like an Enigma armor on to teleport. I hate to say it, but if you want to use the Myasma chains and you actually want to use them effectively, like, the only real effective way to use them at the moment is to cast 5 of them and then teleport on the other side of the enemy, because you can't Blade Warp and you can't use anything else, because the only thing that works is teleport. And even then, you can't teleport too far away, because if you teleport too far away, the chains immediately disintegrate, and that's because there's a leash limit on them that needs to be removed. Moving on from Myasma Vaults, because Myasma's stupid. I'm really upset that they even bothered to mess with Myasma, because there was nothing wrong with it. I think that's the thing that bothers me the most, is that there was nothing wrong with the Myasma tree. It was perfectly fine as it was. It wasn't the most amazing thing, and it wasn't the worst thing. And it was just middle ground, like, decent build. Now it's, like, trash. I don't know how to explain it. They didn't touch Abyss, though. Abyss is still amazing. Have fun sucking monsters off. I know you guys like sucking monsters off, and I know how I said it. I'm well aware. Lethargy got its damage taken removed removed, so it no longer actually lowers physical damage. It still lowers attack speed. It still lowers run walk speed. It still lowers enemy defense. It's still fairly effective as a curse, but it's not as good as it once was. I think it's still worth using. I don't really know why they removed the damage taken stat entirely. They could have just lowered it. I don't know. Like 25% would have been acceptable. I don't know why they had to just completely remove it. The Ring of Fire nerf being similar to Frost Nova damage was a huge nerf. I don't even know why they did it. Like, it wasn't the most amazing skill. It didn't do the most amazing damage. It wasn't challenging Nova or like any other ability for like the king of the AoE abilities. And the knockback, although useful in certain situations, was kind of annoying. I don't really know why they nerfed that one at all. I'd love to hear the logic on why they felt the Ring of Fire needed a nerf when it's not even really one of the best abilities in that tree. Like, it's kind of crazy because, like, this is objectively one of the best abilities in the tree. Didn't get touched, by the way. didn't get touched. Flame Wave got a tiny little imperceptible nerf of like 15% damage. Ring of Fire got absolutely donked on, and it didn't need to be donked on. I don't know why. I don't know why they donked on it like that. It just doesn't even make any sense. It's like, I don't know. Like, I guess maybe it was overpowered in early game, as Jason says. Echoing Strike. Yay, Echoing Strike. Echoing Strike got absolutely nerfed into the dirt. The physical portion, at the very least. So the physical portion is completely, like, stunted. Like, it basically does, like, no physical damage anymore. If you still want to build the physical version, you could. I don't know why you would, especially since Mirrored Blades is just a superior version with less skill points. The physical version now requires 20, 40, 60, and you would probably also need 80 for Levitation Mastery to really max it out. I don't know why you would ever invest 80 points into Echoing Strike anymore with the physical version, because it's just not amazing. You could, however, very easily still build the Hexbane version, which works just fine and always has worked well. In fact, it's been one of the best builds for Echoing Strike anyway, is literally just build Echoing Strike and then build Hexbane or Hex Purge alongside of it to get massive amounts of magic damage, and it still works just fine in that particular respect. Does the physical version work? It still works, like, ish, but it's not amazing, and I just don't really think it's worth the skill point investment anymore. Unfortunately, Echoing Strike just really doesn't have much identity left. They stripped it of just about every single form of identity that it had. It can no longer use ethereal items because the items break. It no longer has massive amounts of damage. It doesn't Crushing Blow. It doesn't open wounds. It doesn't do anything, really. It doesn't proc effects. It's like the most mediocre skill that ever existed now. I mean, it was always missing like a large number of things that it could do before, but now it just doesn't do any of those things, and it also sucks. It's like the worst combination of a physical skill that is a weapon attack and a spell that is a, like actual like spell ability. It's like somebody took the worst of spells and the worst of melee attacks and crushed them together in an aluminum foil ball and shined it up and handed it to people. I wouldn't even recommend using it anymore, but if you did want to use it, you could still run it with Hex Purge or Hex Bane. It is still functional, but it's not like super broken like it was before. Eldritch Blast got a tiny a Life Stealer nerf. I don't really know why. It says made static at 5%, but I swear it still says that it's it still says that it's 20%. By the way, they definitely have some tooltip issues. I'll tell you what. Cody's always beating up my green screen. And it's such a non-thing. Like it still does pretty well if you're trying to use it for Life Leech. Terror Zones, Sunder Charms. Oh my god, this one's such a freaking weird change. So let's get to the weird, shall we? We've gotten to the weird. So if you played previously in the previous version of the game before this patch, you know that the best way to get a Sunder Charm is to get Heralds, or Harries as we like to call them. And to get Heralds, the best way to do that is to stay in the same game and to farm Terror Zones in that same game, because they have tiers, right? So there are tiers to the Heralds. There are tiers 1 to 3, 4, and 5. The bonus chance was only on the tier 4 and the tier 5 before. And this basically made it so that if you wanted to get a Sunder Charm, you were most likely going to need to stay in a game for a while to invest in that game. They had added these items into the game, specifically these wooden Worldstone shards. The Worldstone shards Act 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, right? And they're specifically designed around the idea of being able to spawn Terror Zones and stay in the same game and get as many Heralds as you possibly can for as many chances as a Sunder Charm as you can get. I don't know what to say other than, like, take that, crumple it up into a little ball, throw it behind you like this, because it's dead knowledge at this point. This is gone. So how they changed it is they changed it in the dumbest way humanly possible. So instead of staying in the same game, instead of using your Worldstone shards, instead of actually investing into a game and having fun clearing Terror Zones, now the best way to get Heralds to spawn is just simply to leave and come back. So one of the things that they did, and you can see it written right here, is they have the intent is for the player to have a very high chance of seeing both a Tier 1 and a Tier 2 Herald in a single terrorized zone. This change right here made it so that the Tier 1 and the Tier 2 Herald, so the Tier 1 and Tier 2 Harries, spawn instantly. And when I say instantly, I mean like you walk into the zone, you kill like 5 monsters, and there will be a Herald on top of you almost instantaneously. Herald number 1 and Herald number 2 spawn right away. However, Herald number 3 doesn't spawn. Herald number 4 also doesn't spawn. Herald number 5 also doesn't spawn. It's the weirdest freaking thing ever is that they applied a buff to the Tier 1 and the Tier 2 Heralds, and only the Tier 1 and the Tier 2 Heralds. And that buff is so good that the monsters literally spawn almost instantaneously upon joining a Terror Zone, and then nothing else spawns. Like, nothing else spawns. Like, you can literally farm like 4 or 5 zones. And you will not get like a Tier 3. And then finally, maybe on like the 6th zone, you'll see the Tier 3 spawn eventually at some point at its leisure. And the same thing goes for the Tier 4, and the same thing goes for the Tier 5. Now, this wouldn't be so much of an issue if they hadn't also made this change right here. Where is it? Yeah, here it is, right here. The increased drop chance of latent Sunder Charms now starts at Herald Tier 2 instead of Tier 4. This means that instead of the Tier 4 monster getting the special bonus for Sunder Charms, the Tier 2 one is, which is the one that spawns instantly. So the Tier 2 one has the special bonus. Which leads to the dumbest gameplay loop ever. You know what you do now? You join a game, you go straight to the Terror Zone, you kill a couple monsters, the Tier 1 Herald spawns, the Tier 2 Herald spawns, you kill the Tier 2 Herald, you get the special bonus, and you leave. And you never kill any other Heralds, because it's stupid. Why would you ever kill any other Heralds when you can get the special bonus instantaneously from the Tier 2? Which invalidates any kind of investment that you would make in the game. It invalidates the Worldstone shards. It invalidates everything, essentially. And it gets even worse than this. So this isn't even the terriblest thing about them. So the special bonus monsters have a special bonus drop table. The special bonus drop table says that, and very clearly, if a latent Sunder Charm fails to drop, there will be an increased chance of dropping something desirable instead, like a charm, an amulet, a jewel, a ring, or something of that nature. Well, in the couple days that we've been farming, we have noticed that not only do they drop special items, but they drop them repeatedly over and over and over again to a degree which is absolutely ridiculous. Within one day, we had like 8 or 9 rainbow facets. Within one day, we had like 1,000 amulets drop because the amulets are forced into the table. And it started dropping like 2 and 3 set amulets at a time. 2 unique amulets at a time. It was literally just dropping amulets, jewels, rings all over the place to the point of absurdity. Like, we literally had so many unique amulets and unique rings drop, and 11 facets Leon had. I had several facets. I had 2 facets, and I wasn't even deliberately trying to exploit it. It's absolutely ridiculous what they did to the drop table, because the Act 2, the Tier 2 Herald has this like broken drop table where he basically just force drops amulets, rings, jewels, and charms. And it's stupid. Like, it's absolutely stupid. Yeah, you're gonna get like a 30 Maras for like a Lem rune. High Lords are gonna be like a freaking Ral rune. You're gonna be able to get like freaking unique 5/5 lightning facets for like a Ko. And it's absolutely insane, the sheer number of like injections into the drop table that this line right here has caused. It's absolutely stupid. It would completely just like ruin the economy on any amulet, any ring, any jewel. Like, they would just be dirt cheap, and everybody would have like an infinite number of them, like almost instantly. So not only did they make it so that the heralds are basically just completely useless to farm now. Like, you don't need to farm any of these. These are useless. You just leave and join. That's all you got to do now. Just leave, join, kill two heralds, leave, join, kill two heralds, leave, join, kill two heralds, leave, go and shoot, kill two heralds. Freaking item find barbarian's going to be like raining items. I would imagine that the way that this system works, similar to when the Sunder Charms launched and the Item Find Barbarian had like a million Sunder Charms, the Item Find Barbarian is probably going to have like a million jewels, a million amulets, a million rings, because he can literally just force an extra one to pop out of the Tier 2 Herald. So he's going to have like 3 amulets drop, and then he's going to hork it, and then 3 more amulets are going to drop out. That's how ridiculous it is. The whole entire thing is just really freaking weird. And then the Sunder Charms are super easy to get now. Like, if you farm them, if you just sit there and you farm the Sunder Charms, you're going to get them. Because you can get unlimited number of Tier 2 Heralds, and you just keep killing the Tier 2 Heralds, and eventually you're going to get many, many Sunder Charms. They're going to be just as common, if not more common, than Reign of the Warlock. I know they have this line in here where it says, while still keeping charms rarer than pre-Reign of the Warlock drop rates, but that's complete bullshit. That is not true. Because, to be honest, that with the way that they have it set up, and as soon as people understand the meta, and as soon as the bots understand the meta, and as soon as everyone gets into pace of literally just running these Tier 2 Heralds over and over again, you'll have like an infinite number of Sunder Charms throughout the community. There will be no shortage of Sunder Charms whatsoever. Then there's also this line right here. So not only did they make Sunder Charms like super duper 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 easy, but they also made it so that regular monsters can now drop Sunder Charms. And what this does is it changes the entire meta. So people who are farming like Mephisto, or you're just running through the game, it also basically makes it so that you can actually find Sunder Charms as you're just leveling up and you're not actually like have beaten the game yet. It's really weird. I've actually already heard of several people saying they were farming Mephisto and they found like 3 or 4 Sunder Charms already farming Mephisto. So, like, if you have any doubt whether the Sunder Charms with the current changes are going to be, like, super duper ridiculously common, yeah, they're going to be ridiculously common. Not only will you be able to sit there and farm the Tier 2 Herald over and over and over again with the way they currently have it set up, but you're also just going to find them randomly throughout the world with regular Magic Find. I don't know what the exact TC class is on them, but I would assume they're probably somewhere around the same drop rate as, like, a Geeds, which is not very rare. Like, I usually find like 4 or 5 of those every season. They're not very good, but I usually find about 4 or 5 of them every season. And then they did the same thing with the Colossal Ancient statues, which they made it so the Colossal Ancient statues no longer drop from terrorized zones. So you can get them from regular bosses as well. So you can get the Sunder Charms from regular bosses, regular monsters. You can get the Colossal Ancient statues from regular bosses in general. Which, I mean, maybe the Colossal Ancient statues were a little more on the rare side because they came specifically from bosses, and I'm not entirely like upset with this change. I think that actually might be a good one, but this one is stupid, especially considering they already have this in here, which is going to make them super common anyway. I mean, the overall change to the terror zones seems small at first glance, until you realize that it completely changes the meta in every way, shape, and form to the point where you no longer farm the Terra Zones in the same way that you did previously. I don't know about you guys, but I liked the way that the Terra Zones were previously. I liked investing into the game. I liked getting the multiple heralds, and all I really wanted was the heralds to spawn more often, not for them to do this. Like, I don't know what this is, but it's crap. Like, and this is super crap. Like, these two things together right here are nothing more than, like, throwing loot at the player and hoping they shut up. Like, here, have 1,000 rings, amulets, and charms, and jewels, and shut up and leave us alone and stop complaining. And then, so what's the point? What's the point of these anymore, right? So what's the point of the Tier 3, the Tier 4, and the Tier 5 Herald anymore? There's no point. There's no point whatsoever. They're basically worthless. They don't. You would never actually farm them, because if you try to farm them, it takes forever to farm them, and it's a waste of time. If you could just leave the game and get 2 more heralds almost instantaneously, why would you spend another like hour trying to farm a Tier 3, Tier 4, or Tier 5 herald? And it's stupid because there was nothing wrong with the original system, and this just completely upends the original system and throws it in the trash can. Like, these guys are thrown in the trash can, basically. They have no purpose anymore. The entire purpose of these, which was to spawn Terra Zones, why would you even need to use these anymore, except for maybe just the EXP? Or to craft your renewed Sunder Charms. Like, they're basically useless for the purpose of actually making Terra Zones now. They added these things, and now, like, why would you use them when you can just do this? I just don't understand the changes that they're doing to the heralds. I don't understand any of this stuff. I think it's trash. I think the whole thing's trash, to be honest. I think this is trash. I think this is trash. I think this is trash. Like, they got to find another way to ramp up the quality of the heralds. I mean, maybe if they took this one away, where the special drop chance was not on the Tier 2 Herald, maybe that change might be, like, halfway decent. But because this is here, because the special drop chance for the Latent Sunder Charm is on the Tier 2 Herald, there's no reason to farm the Tier 3 one. Why would you ever farm the Tier 3 one when the Tier 2 one has a special drop chance? Why would you ever waste time getting to the Tier 3, the 4, or the 5 when you can just leave and rejoin? It's dumb. The Colossal Ancients, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I never even checked these guys. They were so weak to begin with. You could literally fart on them and they would die. I mean, they buffed them up a tiny bit in defensive power, and they apparently made Talic do more damage, but, like, somehow I just don't really think this is going to make any difference. WASD. I actually never checked out WASD. I never checked it out. I checked it out the first time they did it, and I liked it. And I was upset that they took it away. But here, let's check it out right now. I totally forgot. Yeah, it's still there. I mean, let's see if the bug still exists. So there was a bug in the game where you would, like, if you, like, picked up an item off the ground or whatever, and you, like, ran around, it would, like, bug out your character or something. It looks like that's gone. Yeah, it looks like that's gone. Yeah, so it looks like they fixed the WASD bug. I need to make sure I bind that and use that as my defaults from now on, because I actually like the WASD in the game. Bug fixes. Akmel the Curse can no longer be bound by Bind Demon. That was the Act 2 Herodrum. That was the Act 2 Herodrum. Should have been bindable in the first place. Fix the slow tainted damage to increase the Blood Boil synergy. So this one's huge. The Blood Boil character's nuts. Like, I actually did a Blood Boil character. I played around with it this season, and I was actually really surprised with how good it was. And then when I heard that they were fixing the synergy, so the synergy actually worked, I did a Blood Boil version with that, and I played around with, like, the Tainted. You can get, like, 30k freaking fireball damage from your Tainted, and you can have 3 of them, and you can literally teleport around and murder things with, like, 3 times 30k, which is, like, 90,000 damage per fireball, and then it's, like, 90,000 damage times, like, 2.77 or whatever cast per second, or I don't know what their cast speed is exactly, but it's a lot. It's like at least 2 fireballs per second, so it's like 180,000 damage a second. for your Tainted. I tested it on Uber Diablo. I tested it on some other monsters. With just a Plague Sword, which is probably best in slot for this build, by the way. If you get a Plague Dagger with like +3 Tainted, that's probably best in slot with 2 skills. So that's +5 to your Tainted, and then it has the lower res proc. With just lower res proc, I absolutely effing annihilated Uber Diablo. And I didn't even use Conviction, which Conviction is obviously what you would want as well. I did do some significant testing on Tainted to actually test and see what benefited them and what didn't, so you guys could make those decisions when it comes to the next season if you want to do the Taint Lock. I'm patenting that, by the way. It's a Taint Lock. You call it a Taint Lock. I don't care. So the Taint Lock, the Tainted ability is not a very useful ability in terms of like what you can do with it. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I tested just about everything. Plus fire skills does not affect it unless they fix it. So if you have things like Flickering Flame or you have like Mage Fist, they don't work. Plus fire skill damage doesn't work. Don't know why it's not classified as a fire skill, I guess. I actually postulated that it might be classified as a lightning skill because Tainted are actually lightning monsters, but I didn't actually test it yet. Negative fire resistance. I did some conclusive testing to figure out whether negative fire resistance from equipment actually affects the Tainted, and it does not. If you sacrifice one of the Tainted and the Tainted give you negative fire res and plus fire skill damage, that also does not apply to the Tainted. The only thing that seems to apply to the Tainted is plus the skills, demon skills, negative resistance in the form of lower resistance, and conviction. Those are like the only things that help out this thing. So you want massive amounts of plus to skills, and you want a massive amount of negative resistance in the form of conviction aura and lower resistance, probably infinity and plague sword. You could also potentially use a pus spitter and mirrored blades early on because that gives you lower res proc. That would probably be a solid budget item for this build if you wanted to build it. I've actually done it before the synergy, and I loved it. After the synergy, it's absolutely bonkers. It does so much freaking damage. To give you an idea of the difference between the two, before the synergy, this was like 5,000 per fireball. And times 3, which was like 15k per fireball volley, essentially. Maybe like 30k per second, which wasn't the most amazing thing in the world. Now it's like almost 30,000 damage per fireball, which is, what is that, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. It's like 6 times the damage that it was before. Taint Lock is probably going to be the new meta for next season. It's actually kind of insane. It does have issues with fire immunes. There are ways you can bypass those issues. You can just simply summon some Goatmen to deal with it. As a Taint Lock, you're going to have maximum demonic mastery anyway, so your Goatmen are going to be pretty damn powerful. You don't really use a Blind Demon because you want 3 Tainted. You can also use 2 Tainted and a Defiler, which is a halfway decent combo as well. And then on top of that, you also get access to Blood Boil if you want it. So if you do want to beef up Blood Boil, you do have to put 20 points in the Blood Boil to actually make it work. So you can do a Tainted Blood Boil build, but to get the full synergy for Blood Boil, you do have to invest an extra 20 points into Blood Oath, and I think it's 20 points into Engorge, depending on which side you want to go. My suggestion would be you do Blood Oath, because Blood Oath increases the physical side. And that way your Blood Boil does physical damage so that you have an alternative type of damage to your fire damage. But it is a very powerful build. It's also very fun. It's just very fun in general. I don't have the version set up right now that I can show you, the new one. But there's some, I'm sure there's some footage on my previous testing from yesterday you can watch. You literally just like teleport around. You don't even have to teleport. You can just Blade Warp. Blade Warp works just fine. And it's actually better because if you're using the Plague Sword, you want to get hit and you want to proc the resistance, the lower resistance aura. So the Plague Sword actually works surprisingly well with the build. If you're using Blade Warp, you put yourself in harm's way, you get hit, you proc the lower res, and you deal massive amounts of damage as a result. And then you also have your minion, which Blade Warp also teleports your minion. So if you're using a Conviction or a minion, you teleport him in there, and he also does massive amounts of damage. It actually works really, really, really freaking well, and it's super fun. Moving on to the next one. Echoing Strike is a lot of stuff in here about Echoing Strike. I already talked about it briefly, but let me go over it like one more time. They nerfed it like 6 ways. It's like 6 different ways. They nerfed the additive to multiply to additive damage. They removed nerfed the fact that it didn't have attack rating. It now has attack rating. They nerfed the not incurring durability on loss of a weapon. They took away the cursed 75%, brought it down to 5%. They took away the physical damage reduction from the sigil lethargy. I mean, they hit it every single way they could possibly hit it, and then they threw a damage nerf on top of it, like brought it down from 5% synergy to 3% synergy. It's really, really nerfed. They also adjusted the Western Worldstone Shard drop chance to be more in line with the other shards. If you guys noticed, the Western shards were dropping way more often. And speaking of dropping way more often, they also talked in here about how specific things like the shards were only dropping more often in higher player counts. So you see right here, it says increased chance to drop latent Thunder Charms from Heralds is no longer heavily modified by player counts. And there should be another one in here. The chance to drop Worldstone Shards is no longer modified by player count. So what this means is that before, if you were trying to farm Worldstone Shards, or you were trying to farm, which doesn't matter anyway, because Worldstone Shards are like basically useless now. They have like one use, which is to create your renewed Thunder Charms. But anyway, the Worldstone Shards are super common now in the fact that, like before, if you wanted a lot of them, you would go to player 8 and they dropped all the time. Now, the same drop rate for players 8 is also in players 1. So you're going to get tons of Worldstone Shards, just like the people who were farming in players 8. As it was before, like it was untenable, like you couldn't actually maintain your runs. I mean, not that you need to maintain your runs anymore, but you'll be able to maintain your runs that you're not doing. And then the Thunder Charm drop chance apparently was increased for lower player count as well. So that was apparently something that was a big thing as well. Like the P8 users were seeing a lot more Thunder Charms, and the P1 users weren't. Now the P1 users have the same drop chance for the Thunder Charms as the P8 users. Again, I don't even know if it really matters, because it seems like the Thunder Charms are going to be super duper common. Today I wanted to do some more testing. I'm not sure exactly what I want to check out, but I definitely want to check out some more stuff. Overall, my feelings on this patch are bad. I feel like it's like 65% bad stuff, or stuff that didn't need to be changed. Maybe like 10% just straight up weird things that I don't even know why they even went, why. And then like the rest of the percentage is good stuff. Like there are good things about the patch, and I think I've glared heavily on some of the good things that they potentially did, but like there's also a lot of really stupid and bad weird things that they did as well. Like I hopefully the developers watch this video, because I feel like I was very thorough in discussing just about everything that I could potentially discuss here. I mean, and if they wanted to ask me some questions, like contact me and ask me questions, I would go into detail on a lot of the stuff, because I'm going to say this as plainly as I possibly can. I feel like you had a really good patch with Reign of the Warlock, and I feel like you're just fucking it up. Full stop. You're just completely screwing it up. Like this is like a lot of this is literally just you taking what you did that was good and throwing it away, which is just really freaking weird. Anyway, that's the end of this video. I've been ranting for like an hour and 3 minutes. As always, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you enjoy the content, and keep watching.